So for this podcast episode, I'm having a conversation with Corbin Jennings. Corbin Jennings is a MADabolic franchisee, and he is also now the brand president. Corbin, if you've seen any of the content I've done with him in the years past, is a 5-unit franchisee with MADabolic. Now, he has recently and I'm pretty sure by the time you guys are watching this, it's already announced, it's out there, but Corbin has completed the sale of all 5 of his locations. So he grew all 5, got them profitable, successful, wrapped them up, and sold them. And in this conversation, he's going to talk to me about how he did it, why he did it, the ins and outs, and what he's looking to do next as the brand president. Enjoy this conversation with myself and Corbin Jennings of MADabolic. All right, dude. So
Ready.
The last time you and I got together, we were talking more 5 locations, MADabolic, DC, the whole deal. And then, and for anyone listening, if it doesn't sound like I've done any prep for this, I fucking haven't, because we had a quick call like, hey, there's some changes going on. I'm doing some big things, and I'll be down in Charlotte, and let's just talk shop. So fill me in. What has been going on in your world of multi-unit franchise owner to whatever the fuck it is you have going on now?
So I think the last time you were up, we were either in the process of finishing up the build out with DuPont, or maybe we had just opened.
Yeah, they just finished a mural when
Okay.
we shot there. We got to shoot in front of the new mural. So it was like end of 21, 22.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So I had 2 locations before then, opened up both Alexandria and DuPont within the same month, December of 2021. That was fun. And then since then opened up 14th Street about 8 months later. So then been growing them as much as we could. 2025 was the first year that we got up to kind of like full scale, full membership, all that stuff.
Across all 5 studios.
Across all 5 studios, in a really good spot where I wanted them financially. Towards around like September, we went to market trying to sell them. Talked with a bunch of people, and we are finally about a month away from hopefully finalizing a sale for the 5 locations.
So when you say go to market, I mean, this isn't a Facebook post or Instagram. Anyone know anybody who wants to buy 5 thriving locations in DC? Like, what does that look like for you at your level?
Yeah. So we had a broker that helped us go to market with all this stuff, put up all the postings on business sale, all that
Create
kind
an
of
offer
things.
memorandum, the whole thing.
Exactly. The whole thing. Create a data room, everything that, I have no clue how to do. So they helped with that. They get all the leads, NDA, all that kind of stuff. Once they get to a certain point, then they bring me into the conversation, LOI and all that stuff. But we're in an interesting spot to where you're not going to have someone that just wants to do this for a hobby, come in and buy a single location for whatever, but we're also not big enough to where we were really attracting any sort of private equity money. So we were kind of in that middle ground. So it was people that usually had like an investor or 2 that wanted to come in and try and buy 5 locations and grow it.
Now, the typical mom and pop story of selling a gym is like sold it to a trainer or sold it to another gym owner who wanted to buy this used gym for pennies on the dollar. This is a different game. How do you think of, because you're like 2025 is like the year, like boom, they're all looking pretty. This is the time to position this thing to sell.
Yep.
How does that look like to a buyer when they're coming in and they're like, cool, you've got this, they all look pretty now. Do you have to discount pricing? Because like, well, you've only had 14th Street now for X amount of years. This one is like, it's still doing its thing. Or how do you look at valuating all of that? So when you sat down with the broker, because there's multiple ways to value the business. Did you actually come with the valuation you stuck with, or is it what someone's willing to pay?
I mean, what someone's willing to pay.
Sure.
And when I signed on for DuPont Alexandria, I bought a big territory in hopes that it would elevate my multiple later on for someone to grow into. So that was part of it. And then factoring in, does that give you a 10% bump on your multiple if you are going off EBITDA? Does it give you a 20, a 30? So that was the huge unknown. So we definitely went to market with something a lot of people were like, you're crazy. So trying to paint that picture to people to where they would at least contemplate putting in an offer, even if it was lower. So we did, where we are at a price point now to where we're lower than our initial ask. We also had to get a little creative with, do we do a seller note, rollover equity, all that kind of stuff to help bridge the gap, because what we started to run into is some of these people, how much money they have, how much money SBA is willing to do and stuff like that. So we just had to get a little creative. Whereas if you had a PE firm coming in,
Sure.
maybe less creativity
So
needed.
this group's also using what, like a 7A loan to
Mhm.
come in and help bridge the financing gap?
Yep.
What, if anything, to whatever extent you're able to share numbers for this, like, what does it look like? What are you selling the 5? Okay, like, are you able to talk about that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, we initially put it on the market for 7.2 to 9.5 again, throwing a big number out
Yep.
there, anticipating that we are gonna have to come down. It took a little while to find people. We had some people come back at like in the mid fours, and I was like, no way. I have a floor that I don't think is unreasonable.
Sure.
So, anyways, now it's a little bit hard to know exactly what the valuation is just because there is a rollover equity piece of this.
Will you explain to everyone what rollover equity is?
Yeah, so I'm essentially retaining equity within my locations, and then also any future locations equity in that. So that's the part that's like hard to value. But if I had to put like a price tag on what we're selling for between that seller note and then cash at close, it's around 6.5.
Okay. And the rollover equity, is that, for people who have not done this, if someone can't meet your price point, that's a back pocket thing you've got. Like, hey, listen, okay, I'll accept a lower price point, but I want to retain equity for a period of time in the future locations you might open within this territory.
Yep. And I mean, there's so many different ways to structure that. I tried to structure it to where I don't have to put any capital in on those future locations, which is great for me. Other people, yes and no. There's anti dilution to make sure they can't raise capital, make you a smaller percentage. So there's a gazillion different variables you can play with. And that's where having a really good, knowledgeable broker, because it's not my wheelhouse, I understand a small fraction
Yeah.
of that. So they helped out a lot with that. And there's a lot of stuff you can do with seller notes too, whether it's deferring payment to help them out with cash flow in the beginning, having it all up front. Is it just interest? Is it principal and interest along the way? Does it balloon? Like, there's a gazillion things that you can do to be creative to try and get the deal through.
And when will you guys officially close?
We're hoping mid June, all dependent on how much back and forth with the attorneys and landlords and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
So it's not as easy as, just agreeing
Selling,
upon
no,
it.
you got to go. You got to get 5 leases, and I mean, you probably, I don't know whether you were thinking about that on lease 1, but you got to have the right to assign that lease upon sale. And if that's not in there, did you have to go back to any of your leases that didn't have that?
No, we're able to assign, and technically this is not an asset sale,
Okay.
so it's technically not an assignment, but some of the leases categorize this in as an assignment. So all the leases are a little bit different. When I was young and starting this, I was an idiot and had a full-term personal guarantee on my first one. I got a little smarter as I went along. So now most of them have burned off, which just means if you had 10 years in the beginning, over 3 years, it burns
Sure.
off to where I only have a year left of a personal guarantee. So for that landlord, getting them to switch up the personal guarantee to the new person, does that new person have enough money? What's the incentive for the landlord to do it? If they've only got a year of mine, they're much more likely to do it. If they've got me on the hook for the next 6 years, less likely for them to let me off the hook. So, there's a lot of different levers that you can
Yeah.
pull.
So with that, you got the landlord part, you got the selling, the financing, the bank. But what about Mad HQ? And obviously, these are all your own businesses. The beauty of a franchise model. I'm assuming you had to get on, knock on the door of HQ and be like, "Hey guys, I've got this offer. I want to do this." Did they have to approve the buyer?
Yeah, they have to approve the buyer. And then there's a small fee whenever the transaction
Sure.
actually goes through. But one thing I will say about corporate, whenever it's come to like timeline of opening and stuff like that, they've never been jerks when they can be, and they've been totally cool with this. I wanted to find a buyer that actually knew their stuff about fitness, the staff would respect, and I thought I had a good chance of success. And they knew that's how I felt. So they've kind of been on board with whoever I picked.
The one thing is with the gyms, anyone thinking about this, like when I talked earlier with the mom and pop, selling to a coach or a member, that always makes sense because it's like a person already from within the house. Bringing somebody in, and typically MADabolic, when you guys are franchising, you guys just don't typically take a guy who owns 7 Menchie's yogurts and a few, salons or spas and now wants to do a couple MADs, right? Like you guys are generally like in an owner operator type person. What did that like for this buyer? Are they completely just cash in and hands off and they're letting your existing staff run the show and they're just gonna be in the background?
No, they will be a good bit more involved. I think for all the buyers coming in being external, and this is important if you do want to scale to 5 locations and sell eventually, is every SOP, it needs to be a little bit hands off at that point, because if I had to be in there 50 hours a week and I'm a really integral part of this, there's no way I'm selling.
Sure.
Not at 5 locations.
Not at 5 locations, and not without replacing you with the salary of somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and we've tried to get as buttoned up as humanly possible. And right now, I do not spend much time on my 5 gyms. I'm not in there that often, other than taking classes. It's more meetings with the general managers, regional director, and stuff like that.
How many more locations do you think the territories that you were able to sell with this transaction, how many more could they realistically open?
Probably 4, maybe 5. With how Metabolic operates right now. I think if future state, we're able to get some other things dialed in to where we get more leads, we're able to get more leads to trial, more conversions, better retention, which I do think is in the pipeline, then it might be more feasible to put in more. But as things sit right now, 4 to 5.
And you were the first 5-unit owner within the franchise system, and now you're going to be the first one to exit as far as that goes. For a lot of people, opening the gym, they've got kind of their eye on that first one. But once you've been in this and you've gone to a few conferences, and you kind of figure eventually you're like, we want to get to this stage. And this is a really important part for any franchise system, to have a representative that's like, no, look, he did it, right? He works his dick off. The guy's smart, whatever. But again, any of you guys could probably, hopefully, replicate some level of success here. Now we have someone who is able to exit. How big is that for a franchise system like Mad, where you guys are still hovering at this like 50-ish kind of threshold, kind of, whatever, we're not in the triple digits yet. It's still a pretty tight-knit franchise ecosystem. How big of a deal is that to have that, a LeBron James on the fucking wall, be like, look, it is possible?
Yeah, it's big. You certainly have some people that come in and they're just looking to change up their lifestyle a little bit, and they want to operate one location. I don't want to call it a hobby, because it's not. It's way harder than a hobby, but they're not looking for, like, we'll call it wealth creation. Versus you do have some other people that are like, I want to do this. I want to bust my ass for 10 years. I want to exit and go live on a beach somewhere, or be financially set up to where I don't have to worry as much anymore. So for people to be able to see that that has been done, and I just need to, like, find out how I can replicate that, I think is really important for the franchise's success.
Walk everyone through the fun part of selling something for in the millions of dollars from a tax implication, 1031. Like, walk it, because it's not just, ooh, I get a fucking check, right? Like, now we have a capital gains scenario, and I'm not overly familiar with what capital gains tax is in your state in DC. I gotta imagine it's a kick in the dick.
Luckily, I live in Northern Virginia.
No, okay, all right. So walk me through what the plan is now, because okay, if we're gonna go in and sell the 5 of these, what now? Do you go to the beach and set off in the sunset, or what?
No, there's some future stuff coming. So you do have, depending on how things are structured, how much you depreciated, amortized, and how much of it will be treated as cap gains versus normal income. That varies a lot.
Get a good CPA.
Get a very good CPA, getting those people in place so that you can get a good idea of that. And you want to set up the structure of things from the get-go, to where you are going to hopefully get to do capital gains, because it is way cheaper. You don't want to have to shell out $1 million extra out of your sale. So that's big. The next step for me, I got presented with the offer to later on in about a month and a half move into the president role of MADabolic. So I'm going to take a pretty large portion of my proceeds from the sale and roll it into buying into corporate. I have a bad habit of continuing to leverage everything and keep hoping for, like, the bigger thing. So the hope and goal here is to take a good portion of the sale, put it in MADabolic over the next 5 years, get a lot of our KPIs in a really good spot, sell some more franchise locations, some of the single multi-unit operators, get them to where they're so successful they want to open up more and more locations. So that is the hope and goal over the next 5 years.
What do you see for Mad currently as far as where you guys are at? And, I see this across the system. Group fitness franchise sales are, they're not what it was 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
we had the surplus of like everyone getting, their dick hard with cold plunge and sauna and recovery rooms and money going elsewhere with other things and GLP-1 clinics and all this other stuff. Why do you think there's been, and it's not a slowdown because studios are still opening, fitness is still growing up and to the right, but um why do you think there's been a slowdown within boutique specifically of the guys that have been standing there, the Orange Theories, the F45s, the Mads, all that? Franchise sales are definitely not what they were, right? Why is that?
The space has gotten a lot more competitive. I think to be successful, you have got to really operate well. There's a lot of things you got to get buttoned up. I also think fitness, group fitness, boutique fitness was like the hottest thing in the world pre-COVID for PE. So I think a lot of people came in, some P did well, some didn't do so well. I think some people got kicked in the nuts a little bit and people started to pull back, just being a little bit more cautious than, hey, we can go in and we're guaranteed to be more successful. So I think both of those things kind of played into it. But yeah, I mean, I opened my first location 10 years ago and I had a few Orange Theories around me, a few F45s. Now there's way more competition. So you got to deliver a really good product and everything on the back end has got to be really buttoned up.
Is your competition is growing of other franchise systems, or are they one-off mom and pop type things that are just doing well?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, so when I opened up my Arlington location, I believe there was one other Orange Theory within, let's call it a 3-mile radius. At their peak, like 3 years ago, or I guess probably pre-COVID, there was 8 within a 3-mile radius. So a lot more saturation from them. F45, they're on the downturn a little bit right now. So now we are seeing a few more mom and pop locations open up. Whether they really scale is hit or miss. So kind of both.
Mhm. Franchise conference comes up in 6 more months, less than 5 more months, something like that. A lot of people are going to be, again, talking about this and the sale and that kind of thing for the brand. This is a big deal. What advice do you have to those individuals that are at one unit, want to do multiple, and maybe they're in that 2 zone? And like realistically, is 5 the bare minimum, you think, for selling practically? Can you do it with less? What advice are you giving everyone else? Because there's not as many other multi-unit outside of 2-unit owners within the
Yeah.
system.
Um, we don't really have enough of a sample size for me to know. My guess, my inclination is 3 to 4 to really kind of get someone excited. And you do hit like upper thresholds with SBA before you start to get into like the P. So I think at 3, you probably get someone who's excited. Having a territory certainly helps because most of them are trying to look at like what benefits do I have of going with you? Is my franchise fee cheaper now? Whatever the things you kind of baked in are going to be things that are looking for. So I think probably 3 to 4 is like your minimum. Advice on that stuff, whenever you're setting up like your first lease, the structure of things, whether it's a holding company above that, start to think through that. It's stuff that I didn't think. I was just, let's get open and rock and roll. But like the lease for my first one might end up being a pain point for me where maybe I've got to stay on for 2 years after I'm done, which I'd prefer not to do that. So trying to focus on that stuff from the get-go. It is extra work. It's not fun stuff.
Sure.
But it's worth it in the long run if that's the route you want to go.
Where do you see, you're in DC, you're in this mecca. We are just talking about the Boston franchisees. We're doing Baltimore now with Mad, Durham. Where do you see the biggest opportunities in some of these markets? Like I did Colorado Springs location. It's like, it's a great little quiet little pocket, right? Everyone's like Denver, Denver, Denver. And then you got this boom, this nice little pocket there for growth. And anyone who's maybe thinking of franchising and maybe they're thinking of MADabolic or whatever, do you like the tier 1, the big markets, like where you set up shop in, or do you believe there's more opportunity to go to where the party's not quite at yet?
I think it depends on how many locations you want to scale to. If you're looking to go to 10 locations, Charlottesville, Virginia is probably not it.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons, in my opinion, to a big city versus a Charlottesville. I am naturally going to deal with a lot more attrition. I will have more leads, but it's kind of a constant game of bring people in, convert, and then they are going to leave at some point. It's just the nature of the beast versus in Charlottesville, way less competition. People are going to stick around for a lot longer. They're in their habits. They have a family. They've got a house. They're just staying there for a while. So your attrition's much lower. So pros and cons to both. maybe depends on kind of like the owner's personality, but again, how many locations do you really want to go to?
Yeah. I use when I came up and we did a whole thing with your GMs, right? And we were talking about the average time someone stays. And that's one of my biggest things in the industry. It was like, oh my God, if you don't have a client that stays for this long, I'm like, your gym's no, like in DC, if you relocate your apartment or your townhome 8 blocks that way, you're not going to that metabolic anymore.
Yeah.
You were going to go to the other one on this, it
Yeah.
just purely out of convenience.
Yep.
Is that a knock on the quality that that store provided? No, there are some markets which you have this crazy nomadic lifestyle where people's convenience and whether they go to that coffee shop or that coffee shop, or I've got friends, but they live over in Chelsea and I live in lower Manhattan. I'm not walking up to go fucking see them. It's that kind of convenience thing. Whereas the Charlottesville, the Shenandoahs, the smaller markets, you got mortgages and drive time.
Yep.
People are willing to drive 15, 20 minutes in any direction for any reason.
Yeah.
There's also lower barrier to entry. Right? Like getting into those smaller markets. Yeah, it is a pros and cons thing, especially like as we look at on the real estate side too. What you know, if you wouldn't mind asking me, what the fuck is what's the president? What's the role? Like what does that mean? It's a dope title. What the fuck does it mean?
I think for a company as small as we are, we don't give out the CEO title. I think for most people, that's kind of what they would associate with it. So I think you're driving a lot of the brand.
What's Rick's title?
Rick was president.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
And Rick has done a good job. I think at some point having someone in that role that has been on the franchise side of things, there's a big benefit to it. You've gotten to see all the ins and outs, the nitty gritty, what's going wrong, well, all that stuff, what it's like being a franchisee and what support are you getting from the franchisor. So I think if you can find someone that can somehow drive the corporate side now, I do think that's probably best. So anyways, Rick has done a great job, but I think having someone move in that can kind of make the shifts and changes that the franchisees need.
What kind of, again, you guys don't have, I mean, like corporate technically, Rick's in DC and then like you got some corporate people here and some are you guys going to consolidate? What does this look like for Matt in like the next 36 months? Are things like well, our franchise conference be in DC now? Like, well, like, is that going to be the home base for training camps and things like that, Discovery Days?
A lot of things will move up there. Conference this year is going to stay in Charlotte. We are moving most of the training camps up there. Discovery Day will go up there. So a lot of functions are going to go up there. We've operated with a bit of a skeleton crew on the corporate team. So some of them might move back up if some are doing a great job and they want to work remotely and fly up when needed. Cool. We're kind of putting ourselves into growth mode now, though. So we are looking for a VP of marketing and revenue, a chief growth officer. Like it's time to piss or get off the pot. So we're looking to expand a lot.
You mentioned some of the proceeds from the sale rolling into buying some equity in corporate, correct? In DHQ. Was that more a straight transaction of equity cash for equity, or is it also like, we also need the dollars because we need these things and they're not cheap. And if you want to do that, if we're going to do this with it, it's going to require cash.
Both.
Oh, got it.
Because I mean, most of what you're getting your money from is royalty, system advertising fees, and then franchise fees of new people. You can make a lot of money on the franchise fee side, but you need to be growing quickly. So we got to kind of spend the time with the chief growth officer and VP of marketing and revenue to get the wheel really turning again so that we can get some from that. So we kind of need something to fill in the gap right now.
During the buyer's due diligence period where they're looking through the books and all that, what was the worst thing that could have happened that would have really potentially crushed the sale? I generally, anytime this happens on a smaller cadence, I'm like, now's not a time to fall out with your GM and have them can't quit and leave and have any turmoil, right? Things have got to be buttoned the fuck up.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, what were the things that were concerning to you from that side of someone doing their due diligence? I'm assuming they came and took classes. I'm assuming they came down and met and talked with staff.
They talked with some staff. Not that I'm like trying to keep this a secret, but I knew this was going to go on for a long time. So we just haven't told a lot of staff about this. So you guys will find out soon. I think the worry for most people, but it wasn't really a worry for me, is like, are you hiding any things in your books that they will find in quality of earnings? I did not realize how thorough that is. So if you're hiding something, probably just don't go and try and sell. Quality of earnings is really in depth. And then
What describe to everyone what quality of earnings is.
So they will get every bank statement, P&L. I mean, they're looking for, are you in good standings with the district? Like, I think I uploaded, I put myself in a room for 8 hours and uploaded like 200 documents into this virtual database. The buyer side has a quality of earnings team, an accountant team that runs through everything. They also have a legal team that's reviewing all of your leases and everything like that. So, they're mapping out everything. They're looking at the next 5 years. Their attorneys are seeing, what's a run rate whenever we got to go renew our leases. So they're looking at everything under the sun. This is not the mom and pop where, it's a quick transaction.
Yeah.
It's a big chunk of change. They want to make sure that everything's in a good spot there. So QB went really well, smooth. They had like a couple questions, answered, boom, done. So that was the part that I think if a deal is going to fall apart, it's either going to be there or you going back and arguing in the purchase agreement, which we tried to be a little bit more specific in the LOI to make sure all the big stuff was really outlined to where whenever we get to the purchase agreement, it's just attorneys doing the stuff they do.
Yeah. For anyone listening, the headline, whatever thumbnail we come up with, blah, blah, Corbin sells 6 million, blah, blah. That's sexy and fun. Walk people through just your like what your closing costs are for this, like your costs for the transaction. Or are we able to kick a lot of those costs over to the buyer?
I don't even necessarily know all the costs yet. So we got
a running total.
So like the attorneys, everyone's like, oh, attorneys will be 10,000. I'm like, no, probably 100,000.
Yeah.
Because again, they got to review every lease, everything like that. So you have some of that. A lot of landlords require you to pay their attorney fees. Yep. Is the landlord going to require an extra security deposit? So there's a lot of stuff that's unknown. You also have a broker's commission. We changed that around a little bit. I wanted them to have a bigger upside to get a bigger price tag. So it's a sliding scale. If I had to purely guess, not even take into account the tax implications later on, 300,000 to 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. It's one of these things like playing that kind of game, wanting to sell for the amount that you had your mindset on. You got to pay to play. Like you're not in the little leagues anymore. This is serious shit.
Yeah.
How hard was it? So, a lot of people to go to sell, you can get a local business broker, throw you up on biz, buy, sell, right? Like whatever it is. And what was that process like? Because you never worked with a business broker before. Was it pretty much don't waste my time unless it's a legit fucking lead? Or did you deal with a bunch of took a bunch of meetings that were looky-loos? Like for anyone thinking of going and selling, what does that vetting process look like?
Yeah. So vetting process, I don't even know exactly what the first part, because I never got super involved, but they would try and be like, do you actually have the funds for this?
Yeah.
How serious are you? What other concepts are you? So just trying to suss out, like, are you legitimate? From there, a lot of the times I would get involved with like a quick phone call just to answer some high level stuff. I also wanted to see, like, are you a fit for this? I probably took only 15 calls in total. We had a few people early on that I thought were going to submit an LOI, never ended up doing it. And then we got really lucky. We had a couple people that submitted an LOI at the same time, and we were
create a little betting more.
Yep. Which all you need is 2.
Yep.
And I mean, it was actually really substantial what we were able to push for, between getting both of them up. I mean, to like $500,000 to $750,000.
The group they ended up going with, did they own other franchise groups as well?
No, it was a husband and wife, and then the father of the lady was a serial entrepreneur. And
that concern you at all?
Yeah, I had not had a ton of people that had owned their own businesses. A lot of people had experience, whether it was in accounting, finance, marketing, stuff like that. So we did not deal with a lot of people that had owned their own business. So I was trying to see, who's got good business acumen, and who's a grinder.
Yeah. Because your equity rollover is now contingent on them not fucking this up. Yeah. It's like, anytime you carry a seller's note and, we'll do these deals where it's like a seller's note and the owner's going to stay on for 24 months for consulting, essentially make sure that the fire is not happening. He's going to get his full amount of money by the end of it. Yeah. I got to imagine it's got to be one of the more nerve-wracking things. When you got on those phone calls, you said I was looking that you're a good fit. What is that like? What, like, if I'm the, let's say I'm the potential buyer, what kind of questions are you asking? Like, what are we talking about?
So like if we start talking about like generating leads or talking about conversion, retention, like do they understand like just the basic principles behind like what drives some of this stuff? And like if you don't know those basics, we have a big problem. Understanding some of their background, are they on the analytical side? Are they more marketing and theory and stuff like that? I like people that are a little bit more analytical. I think they just understand the drivers of the business a little bit more. And then I also really wanted to find someone that was at least into fitness themselves big time. And like, everyone said they were into fitness and then you meet them, you're like, you're not
Yeah,
into
you're
fitness.
fucking bullshit. Yep, yeah,
So finding someone like that and someone that my staff would respect, like I still have rollover equity. I'm going the brand, like I'll be there. But I don't want it to be someone that comes in and they just don't take seriously.
sure. Obviously, hiring the business broker, but still beyond that, you've always been a guy, and I've always respected you. When you don't know something, you ask. You go to the people that are subject matter experts and stuff. Was there anyone else like in this realm that you consulted with, whether it's another franchisee, colleagues, whatever, that because this and it's a heavy thing to talk about. And number one, you don't want to somebody you can trust because loose lips sink ship. You want to keep this contained because
Yeah.
you don't need to create chaos amongst your staff and your market and your locations if you don't need to. Yeah, who'd you talk to? Like, what does that look like? Is someone thinking about this? It's like, well, I can ask chat and I could Google some shit and I go on YouTube, but like having people who actually can look at something like this and give you actually tangible advice is completely invaluable in my opinion.
I agree. And I think one of the biggest detriments for a lot of owners is they think they're the smartest people in the room at all times and they never ask for advice. I'm the complete opposite. I assume there's always someone that knows more than I do. So
Yeah,
go find them and ask them. So I found my brokers through a former franchisee that knew someone that had helped to sell some very successful F45s back in the day. So that's how I got in touch with them. I have a couple friends that have either acquired or sold businesses. So talked with them, not in the same industry, but
sure.
still a lot of crossover. So uh, talked with as many people as I could, try to get as much advice. Because if you go in just guns a blazing without any sort of like history detail and stuff like that, it's probably not going to go super well, or you're going to make some mistakes along the way. So try to get as much info as I could before going into it.
So is there ever a world now that you've sold those? Do you ever actually own any? Or now that you're in corporate, is that a conflict of interest? How does that look? I mean, are you retired from gym ownership at this point?
Yeah, I am. I'm wildly ADHD, and at some point, the same problems that you run into time and time and time and again from owning a gym, it just gets mundane, lost its allure for me at some point along the way. The new role to me is a gazillion problems for me to focus on at once. So like, it's going to suit me. So yeah, I'm done with gym ownership. I will never own another gym.
You constantly are kind of rolling the sale and the money from this into a new leverage position and a new leverage position. So my guess is you probably didn't roll a good portion of your sales proceeds into a, a seat at the table in Mad HQ to have a job to keep you out of trouble and getting iced every fucking day.
Yep.
So my guess is the goal then is eventually do the similar thing with Mad. I mean, if anyone, that shouldn't be a shock to anyone listening to this, is like the goal of creating any kind of franchise department or corporately owned ecosystem is to fucking sell it at some
Yep.
point. Does it have an exit? I'm assuming I'm on the right track with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Z Growth, who's a private equity group that came into MAD in 2019, I think. They came in, it's very common, 3, maybe up to 7, usually 3 to 5 years, for them is their normal turnaround time for that stuff. Now, obviously, COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really shitty timing. So I think I've probably held on for longer than they would like to. So when I came into this, I said, I want this to be a full turnaround. I don't want to put my money in and for the upside of 50% more. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
to have the potential for this to be 10, 20x on what I put in. So I think we're looking at a 5-year horizon on let's grow this as much as we possibly can. But I've also been on the franchisee side of things. I don't want to just go sell to a bunch of franchisees for shits and giggles and like them not be
To
successful.
fucking morons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to bring in the right people. I also want to do right by the current franchisees. What all can we change? What all can we support? What all systems, everything can we give people to increase the likelihood of success? No one wants to go into this and make $50,000 in profit. It's a lot of money up front. You start to look at $250,000 in profit at each location. Now you're at the point where you make your money back in 3 to 4 years. You're attractive at that point.
Mhm. What needs to happen to Mad at this where it is currently to make it a real potential sellable asset in the next 5-ish years?
So that's probably one of the biggest things that people are going to be looking at is how long does it take to recoup my investment? If you're under 3 years, you're very attractive. If you're between 3 and 4, you're pretty attractive. Above that, you're starting to get in like a middle ground. So we need to get in the 3 to 4, if not all the way down to 3. So what upfront costs can we help with? Also, how do we get you up to 250, 300, 350 members as fast as humanly possible? So those are some of the big things. And then trying to, if you look at a graph of all the franchisees, how successful the big time ones, not how can we shrink the third and first
Mhm.
quartile to be as tight together as possible? Because that's another big one for potential buyers of the franchise coming in is why is Johnny doing so
Why is
dog
there
shit?
such disparity?
Yeah, there
Yeah,
shouldn't be that.
between
Like
the haves and the have-nots.
if it's a little bit more turnkey, that wouldn't be happening. So those are some of the things. Now, there's a lot of things that I think go into why is there the disparity. We've got to make it to where you can bring in someone who's maybe a great operator, maybe they don't have a huge fitness background. Can we get them to come in? Do we have all the systems in place to help them hire good GMs, trainers, continuing ed for trainers, conversion, speed to lead, great digital partners, all the things to hopefully set them up for more success. So there's a lot I want to work on the first 90
Sure.
days. But I think there's also a lot of low hanging fruit.
And there's, we've all seen I think F45 is the most common one. I don't mind. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, throw shade, but I think it's the most common cautionary tale in the franchise scene in the past, decade, right? Of an overselling of units, geographical boundary, territory infringement, and just, again, just what I always call like selling, dumb money.
Yep.
People who have money, but are just, whatever, just sell it, get the royalty, whatever. If they fail, we'll buy it for $1 and sell it to the next guy, whatever it is. How do you bridge that gap between speed and unit growth while still trying to increase AUV and quality amongst units, knowing that, the product here is so much of the driver of that?
I think one of the easiest ones is don't oversell the territory. You start cannibalizing from one location to the other, like it just makes it hard to operate and be in a good spot. So I think that's one of the things that we can grow from 50 to 150, 200, 300 without starting to infringe upon people. And that's also when franchisees get pissed and things slow down. So that's not my goal. And I don't want to do that. I think you just got to suss out people a little bit. Are people willing to get as involved as they need to be? And some people want to be hands off, which is fine. But if you're not going to listen to corporate at all, you're just going to hire whatever GM you want to, you're not going to hold them accountable. You're not even going to look at any of their KPIs. Like, we'll lead the horse to water, but if you just refuse to drink, that's a problem. And I want to make sure that we avoid that type of stuff, which I don't think is a huge ask. And you're about to put a lot of money into a business. So it's just trying to make sure that we don't go down that road with those people.
Is there anything changing within the product of what you guys are delivering from a workout experience? I mean, from an outside in and somewhat of the outside, I feel like I'm as much close to it as I can be for an outsider. It still looks incredibly sticky to me at the locations. I was just down in Cincinnati and hanging out with those guys. Like, the product still looks incredibly sticky, incredibly like, this is solid. Is it simply like we need to work on top of funnel and acquisition and lead nurture and sales? Or is there anything that needs to happen within here?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's very much so sticky, but right now, like our speed to lead is not where it needs to be. We are not leveraging enough stuff with AI from a dashboard perspective for the GMs to be able to go in and see everything and execute their daily tasks and do it well. It's not all in one place. So we're trying to fix a lot of that stuff. So top of funnel, conversion, all that stuff needs to be better. Retention has always been something that we're like, build a good community, build a great staff, and like, you're good to go. It's not really the case. And like, now that we've really started to dig in on the analytics, people's first 90 days, actually, there's a huge correlation in attendance in the first 30, 60, 90 days and how long they stay. So now can we be an accountability buddy to people? So it's, I think, uncovering some stuff like that that can kind of unlock a little bit of growth potential. Because if your churn's sitting at 8%, you're turning over your entire membership base every single year, basically. That's a hard thing to overcome. So can we help give them the playbook, give them the tools to where we can have churn sit closer to like 4%? Now it's much, much easier to grow and sustain. So kind of from top to bottom, better systems in place. But from a workout perspective, like, I love it. I will never be in a city that doesn't have a metabolic. We've stayed true to our roots, and I actually think we've even gotten more strength oriented over the 10 years that I've been here. So I don't think strength is going out of style. I think a lot of other franchisees love to call things strength, but it's just cardio and lightweights dressed up as strength. So I think sticking true to our roots and that is what will allow us to continue to get results for people, build just a better reputation and stuff like that. So I don't want really anything to change on the workout floor. It's all the other stuff. And then also from a startup cost perspective, are the lights that we have in here, are they too expensive? Like, where can we shave cost a little bit without sacrificing any quality at all? And it's easier to do than you think.
Sure.
Um,
Rick and I were having a whole conversation on demising walls between the lobby and the floor. And people don't realize, like, a wall that separates the lobby and there,
Yeah.
it's not just sheetrock and 2x6s. There's electrical in there, and there's a lot that goes in, and it has to be done with, and it's all the way to the fucking ceiling, and you got to put the duct through it and all that. It's, a demising wall could save someone probably 50 grand all in, it is. And it's like, but then what do you sacrifice on certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like, will that make the lobby too loud? And blah, but like,
Yeah. And that's the thing, is weighing the pros and cons. You don't want to make a decision that's going to make the quality of something much worse than what it is. The demising wall is an interesting one. I have speculated for a long time that having a really small lobby, people get done with their workout, they get out of the cramped lobby and they leave quickly, versus I think if that is either not partitioned off or you have a really big lobby, people are more likely to stay in the community.
congregate.
Yeah. So I'm actually a fan. I'm not a huge fan of forcing certain things down franchisees' throat. I like to give options in certain places where standards don't kind of go to the wayside. And that's one of them to me that I'm like, here's a great example. I mean, that's probably a 22 foot tall
Easily
ceiling.
to the truck. Yeah. All the way up there. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you want to talk about that. Now, if you had other people on the side of that, and like all of a sudden your noise mitigation, like you're 50, if not more, to partition that off. And if I can save you on that, if instead of doing a wireless light switch, I can do a wired one that saves you 5K, like, can we save 100, 150?
Even just having, we were talking earlier, just having like test fit options. If here's option A with the wall,
Yep.
and this is what it would look like option B. And if you get in that construction pinch where, oh, fuck, we didn't realize we had the trench from there to there,
Yeah.
and that ate up 50K. Now you can opt to you have an option to maybe go down.
And that's something, I did a video series recently talking about why going with a franchisee, and all the things that you just discussed. My guess is people have never thought, oh, I have to trench my plumbing. I've got to, you don't know this, but a good franchise that gives you all these options, they explain all this, they will save you from making $250,000 in construction mistakes. That's a hard hole to get out of.
Yeah. No, even on the real estate side, my number one thing is I'm going to always sound like fire and brimstone, but I'd much rather just set up the most dog shit potential probability, knowing I'm hoping for the best, but this is the true worst. And I don't want you to be like, oh my God, I never thought that'd be that expensive. No. We talked about the dog shit scenario from the top, and hopefully it can get better from there, because once you wink it, we're in. Like there's no changing that now. So I mean, like, we're talking about you at 5. We've got Charlotte Markets at 4, right? Big John's at 2. Okay.
And then
2.
you got Evan Lindsay, who owns 3.
Evan's got 3. Yep. Peter's got 2 out in Cali, right?
Yep. Peter's got 2. Emily and Rob have a weird one with second training floor.
Yep.
God, I hope I'm not forgetting someone. I think that's it for multi-location.
Okay. And so when you look at it, is it one of those things? So like, let's say we have as a gym owner, for anyone listening to this, is it easy to sell the new client and get them in the door, or get current clients to spend more money? That's kind of like, is it easier to sell multi-units and, focus on internally and let's get those guys up and going, or attract in? Now, the answer is both, right? It has to be both. It cannot be one or the other. How do you look at the latter part of that of like, okay, we got some good operators and guys like that. Like, why don't they have multiple units?
And that I I think sometimes franchisors don't look at it through that lens. I want to make it to where those guys are having so much success, and I don't want to say hands off, but like it's a little bit easier to where going to your next location, it's just the inevitable next step that they have to take. If that is the way things are set up and that's the way they feel, then outside investors coming in, they're like, cool, I need to be a part of this. And like everything financially makes sense in the models. Again, if people are only making 50 or $100,000 and it costs 400, 500 to open, it's a tough sell on that stuff. So I do want to get it to where the Landon and Finley and Charlotte want to open up their fifth, sixth, and seventh. I want to get it to where Evan keeps opening. Same thing with John and stuff like that. So yeah, and those are the typically really good, successful franchisees, but how can we even make them more successful? How can we bring up the average revenue per member? What costs are there that we can help them with? Just kind of coming through everything.
One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if I'm getting anyone in trouble with this, I've noticed whether, 'cause I haven't seen any kind of system-wide announcements. There's some studios that are doing like people can come in and buy some skill sessions to work one-on-one with someone on a bag if they've never done that. Or maybe they've wanted to come in here, but your slider board's out and they're like, I don't know what that is. I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot because I've never done that. I've seen some more people be able to come in and do some like one-on-one stuff with a coach. Is that just kind of like unit by unit, kind of fucking around and playing with them? We'll report back and see if it works, or is that something like system-wide you guys have discussed?
That's been unit by unit. I think the challenging thing is in the past, there's not been as much like intentional collaboration and like gathering from corporate, which there needs to be on that kind of stuff. Like if Stu's been, hosting one-on-one sessions for all of his newbies and wow, downstream, his churn rate is 2%. It's the best in the entire system. And his conversion rate due to this is the highest. Why have I not reached out to him and asked him what he's doing? So I'm all for giving some latitude as long as it doesn't hurt the brand and we're not doing crazy stuff, but allowing people to test some stuff out, pay attention to your metrics on this stuff and report back. I'm all for that. And like in my market, we've done some stuff like that where newbies coming in, we've started to do some goal setting sessions with them, doing a monthly kind of like foundations clinic in hopes of expediting results for people. So I'm all for that kind of stuff, and I'm hoping that stepping into the role and getting people to collaborate a little bit more, we can implement that stuff much faster.
Are you guys seeing good data? So it's like, I always call that like the PT, personal training first model. Like someone comes in, they start with one-on-one or some kind of high ticket, 5 sessions, 10 sessions, whatever it is, and it's expensive. And then it's an easy downsell into the group membership because it's not as much.
Yep.
But I always tell people the number one reason you don't have more people in here is Sally couldn't get her friend Tina to come, and Sally's not showing up until she brings a friend. The second reason is the reason, like you ask any guy who's never been to a yoga class before, like, oh, I don't understand why women are intimidated to come in here, guys are intimidated. Have you ever gone to a yoga studio, Jack, sir? No, because you're afraid you're going to look like an asshole when they go in the Warrior 2 and you fart, right? Like you don't know the shit, and it is. When you come in and you're like, every photo I see of their members and every workout, everyone knows to know exactly what they're doing. There's a pickleball place here in Charlotte called Tipsy Pickle. I was talking with a couple of people, the managers there. They said the number one people that come in on a regular basis is after they do X amount of intro sessions because they just don't want to be on display looking like an asshole, not knowing how to play pickleball, right? Are you guys seeing that, like this little kind of version of this PT first where you guys are doing some one-on-ones? Is there enough data out there to say this is working well?
I have not gotten access to the data from other locations. With ours, we aren't doing that until they're actually in the membership. The one thing that we changed after 9 years of doing this, I was finally watching a class and there were two newbies in their very first class. We do our demo, we show the movements, we go through a warm up, we have people line up, and then we hop into the workout. They've, of course, forgotten everything from the demo, as anyone would. And I'm watching for the first third of the workout. They're using a weight that's wrong for them. They have no clue what's going on. They're looking around. Of course, the trainer's there trying to help out, but the first third of their workout, I don't want to call it a waste, but it wasn't what it should have been.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I wonder if these people are going to come back because most people want to get their ass kicked typically. Not everyone, but for those people especially, I don't think they're coming back if that was their first experience. So we started to play around with now whenever people come in any day on their trial, we walk them through all of our weighted movements. We have them do a few reps, give a few cues just so that mentally the movement kind of sticks with them. And from the get-go, we also prescribe an exact weight now.
Yeah.
So it's no longer a guessing
No longer
game.
guesswork. Yep.
So for the people that are looking to have their ass kicked on day one, we can deliver that. You also aren't going to feel like an idiot for the first third of your workout because you know the exact movement. You've already kind of figured that stuff out. I honestly think the easier person to convert is the scared person who did finally make the leap and they've come in. Them you just got to talk a little bit softer with, give them
Sure.
some reassurance, and like they're glad that someone just wasn't an asshole and screaming at them.
Yeah.
They're easy.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have always talked about high performer, ex-athletes. That's like the core customer. I tell everyone is,
Yep.
even though that's maybe your core customer profile, like my gym, I never advertise old or fat people. Wasn't my core customer. Young, hot, single looking to mingle. That was it. That's all I wanted to fuck with. I had old, I had overweight, I had geriatric, I had fucked up knee. Like those kind of people, they still trickled in. They were great. They fit the culture. Culture fit perfectly. They weren't my marketing fit, right? They weren't the people I was putting on display as far as that goes. But it's it's one of those things where I can see someone coming in. And again, even though with you guys having the phenomenal organization and all that with the colored plates and all that, coming in, and I mean, Orange Theory started doing this early. You had to be there 15 minutes early, only 2 prospects per class. You put down your credit card. That way, if you no-showed, you got charged. And during that 15 minutes, during the transition, they literally put you on the row. I mean, there's only 3 things they had to do with you. Rower, tread, and the TRX or dumbbells. And just quickly showed you everything. And it was just enough of it so that, because people want to come in on their first class and nobody knows they're new.
Yeah,
That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, if you can entertain and engage them, great. Just don't let them feel embarrassed at any point, and it should be a knockdown sale.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like the fine line to walk from a marketing perspective is putting your customer avatar on there, having some movements that show off what we do, but knowing that there are going to be some intimidated people. So how do we either talk to them in a way that they can relate to, show things that they can relate to without over intimidating, but also you don't want to water down the brand to where we look like, sorry, but F45 again. You know, their heaviest weights are what most of our average female, quite frankly, lifts. So we're just on a different ballgame than them. All of our kettlebells are competition kettlebells. They all look big. So like a lot of these things can be intimidating. So how do we increase our total addressable market to get those, I don't want to call them fringe, but the people that you were talking about on the outside, a little bit older, a little bit overweight, whatever it is, like you want to come in and put in the work. I don't care what the fuck you look like, how old you are. Like I'm happy to work with you. Our customer avatar is the high achiever, the former athlete, whatever it may be. But you know, as long as you're like a community cultural fit, all that stuff, we're good to rock and roll.
Yeah. So, all right, in closing here, what advice would you, we'll do 2 things. What advice would you have for someone, franchise or not, they have aspirations of potentially packaging up and selling one day? We already covered, make sure you're buttoned up, SOPs, all that. So what is your piece of advice there? And then what can any, you know, what is for any metabolic franchisee, what is the next, you know, what do they have to look forward to over now with the changes?
So I think my big piece of advice for anyone who wants to set them up to sell later on, go talk with a broker that has done this a lot. They're going to know the pain points for buyers, things that you should be looking out for. And then I'm a huge fan of also just having mentors, whether it's in the same space as you, other places. Have as many mentors that you can that can give you advice. You know, take what you like, leave what you don't, but trying to get as much knowledge from other people so that you're not making the mistake. So that would be my advice on that front. There's a lot of stuff coming real quick. So I don't start until July 1st, but a lot of the stuff that I want to do, VP of Marketing and Revenue, Chief Growth Officer, from a CRM perspective, speed to lead, getting better. We've got another franchisee who is working on a dashboard to get a ton of stuff centralized, visibility to how the GM is doing, a GM scorecard. Whereas you had to go pull a bunch of things from systems as a GM, now it's all right in front of you.
Tech stack consolidation.
Exactly. You can see leads that haven't come in, all of them are right there. Everyone on your trial, where they are on the trial, what text should be going sent out. By the way, texts are pre-populated based off where they are in your previous conversations. So leaning hard into AI on that stuff. From a retention perspective, a ton paid to 30, 60, 90 days. And not just like your standard buckets of like, oh, if they're not coming in the past 2 weeks, cool, we're too late on that, we're fucked. Have you seen a 50% decline in attendance over the past week? cool, that needs to trigger something. So a lot of stuff like that to make us more buttoned up, easier, faster to do, all that kind of stuff. Within our online portal, where we show people the movements, can we have more stuff that shows like all the different movement flaws for a squat, all the different cues that we might give for a squat? So like continuing education, once people get through training camp and onboarding, do we have more stuff to make sure they get better without just having to go get another cert? More collaboration. We have a management advisory council, trying to get that to be more productive, getting all the best practices from some of your better performing franchisees. So this is my ADHD brain going all over the place and word vomit, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a few things that are going to take a little bit longer. Like if we want to get some trainers that go around and open up a location for a week, a month, whatever it might be, that's a bigger lift on the corporate side, and it's not something that can just happen overnight, but I think it's probably something that we need to explore and implement. Do we bring on a full-time recruiter at the corporate level that helps out with finding GMs and trainers, just so that we can have people who are great operators, they're just not from the fitness space? Can they come in? How can we help them to be successful? So yeah, Rick and Javier, the two kind of high up guys, and we talked about planning stuff, so I sent them over a 65-page PDF.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't know, they were super happy about reading the whole thing, but it goes through everything in the first year, 30, 60, 90 days, everything that we're hoping to implement, budget behind everything. So there's a lot of stuff coming. I think the current franchisees will hopefully be very, very happy. And I think anyone looking at coming on board, opening now versus when I did 10 years ago is a lot easier. I think in the next 6 months, it's going to be 2x easier than what it is right now, just with all the stuff we're implementing. So I am super, super excited about the role. For the past 10 years, I've always talked about, if I could, what all would I change? So now actually getting to do that.
Now we put your money where your mouth is and get to actually fucking do it, right?
Hopefully I don't fuck it up.
Yeah. Well, good deal, man. When we get back together for the franchise conference, we'll go ahead. We'll hit record again and see how that's gone.
It'll be fun because we will be, I guess, close to like 120 days into it. So
yeah,
I'm hoping we have a lot of stuff implemented.
Fuck yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you.